Men, while you slept, the world did not slow down. America woke up to another political shock. The Middle East kept tightening around one of the most important energy choke points on Earth. Russia struck Ukrainian port infrastructure again. Germany started saying quiet things out loud about Ukraine's future. Japan began reviewing its defense posture. And while all of this pressure builds in the political world, AI and semiconductor markets keep climbing like the machine is being fed by the chaos. So tonight, we are not just reading headlines, we are watching pressure points. Because one headline by itself can look random, but when you stack them together, politics, energy, war, defense, markets, technology, you start seeing the pattern. And the pattern is simple. The system is getting tighter. Not collapsed, not over, not panicked, but tighter. That means the room for error is shrinking. The margin is getting thinner, and men who are asleep spiritually, mentally, financially, and physically are going to feel that pressure before they understand where it comes from. This is the 3 a.m. watch. Let's get into it. So the first story tonight is one that sets the tone for the whole show. A man has been charged in connection with an alleged attempt assassination of President Donald Trump after a shooting incident at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. AP reports that Trump was unharmed. Federal charges were filed, and authorities are treating the incident as politically motivated. Now listen carefully. This is not the moment where we run wild with speculation. This is not where we say things we cannot prove. This is where we step back and ask, what does this reveal about the condition of the country? Because whether you love Trump, hate Trump, voted for him, did not vote for him, or do not trust politics at all, this is a signal. The temperature is high, the pressure is high, the emotional state of the country is high. And when political tension gets this hot, normal public life starts changing. Events change, security changes, speech changes, media cover changes, public trust changes, the way people process information changes. And here's what makes this even more important for us truth-seeking men. AP also reported that conspiracy theories spread quickly after the incident, even though reporters were covering the situation in real time. That matters, because when people do not trust institutions, they often do not wait for facts. They rush to fill the gap. Some people fill it with fear, fill it with anger, with political loyalty. They fill it with theories that may or may not have any foundation. But a watchman cannot afford to be sloppy. A watchman cannot be asleep, but he also cannot be reckless. There is a difference between discernment and reaction. Discernment says, something important happened. Let me slow down, gather the facts, watch the pattern, and stay grounded. Reaction says, I already know what this is before the evidence even comes in. Men, we are not here to be reactors. We are here to be watchers. And this story shows us something serious. America is living in a pressure cooker. The lid is still on, but the whistle is starting to scream. And the question is not just, what happened at one event? The question is, what kind of national atmosphere produces moments like this? A country full of people who are exhausted, who do not trust the news, who do not trust politicians, who feel economically squeezed, a country full of people who are spiritually starving. And that is the deeper story. Not just politics, but pressure. And while America is dealing with political pressure at home, the world stage is dealing with pressure at sea. Because the next major story is not just about Iran, and it is not just about ships. It is not just about oil. It is about the value that controls a piece of the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most important waterways on Earth. Reuters reports that traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has been heavily reduced, with the strait normally handling around 20% of global oil and LNG supply. Reuters also reported that ship traffic has dropped sharply as that U.S.-Iran efforts remain stalled. Now, let me say that plainly. One narrow stretch of water helps move a massive portion of the world's energy. That means this is not just a Middle East story. This is a grocery store story. This is a gas pump story, trucking, a shipping story. This is how much does it cost to live the next month story. Because energy is underneath everything. Food does not magically appear on shelves. It gets grown, processed, packaged, shipped, cooled, stocked, and sold. All of that takes energy. So when oil pressure rises, it does not stay in the oil market. It moves, it spreads, it bleeds into everything. Reuters market coverage also tied the Iran situation and oil pressure to the broader market concerns, with oil moving higher as peace talks stalled and investors watched both energy and chip-related developments. So, here's the show. When energy tightens, the whole system tightens. That is why this matters to normal people. A lot of us folks hear Strait of Hormuz, and the brain shuts off. They think, that's overseas, that's just politics, that's not my problem. But it becomes your problem when gas jumps. It becomes your problem when groceries rise. It becomes your problem when businesses raise prices. It becomes your problem when your paycheck buys less. It becomes your problem when families already living tight get squeezed even harder. And men, this is why preparedness is not paranoia. Preparedness is maturity. Having food set aside is not fear. Having water set aside is not fear. Having cash discipline is not fear. Having your vehicle maintained is not fear. Having your house in order is not fear. That is stewardship. That is wisdom. That is Proverbs level living. The fool waits until the storm is overheard and then asks why the roof leaks. The wise man checks the roof while the sky is still calm. And right now, the sky is not calm. The energy system is under stress. The shipping lanes are under stress. The diplomatic channels are under stress. And if this keeps going, the average person will not understand the cause. They will only feel the effect. They will walk into the store and say, why is everything more expensive again? They will pull up to the pump and say, why did gas jump again? They will open their bills and say, why is life getting harder again? And the answer is because pressure overseas does not say overseas anymore. The world is connected. One choke point tightens, and the whole body feels it. Now, while the Gulf region is dealing with energy pressure, Europe is dealing with war pressure. And this next story shows us something very important. The war in Ukraine is not only being fought on battlefields, it is being fought through infrastructure, ports, shipping lanes, energy sites, supply routes. Reuters reports that an overnight Russian drone attack on Odessa injured 14 people and damaged residential buildings and port infrastructure. Ukraine's Air Force and Russia launched 94 drones, that 74 were intercepted. Now again, do not just hear Ukraine attack and move on. Ask, what kind of target matters? Odessa matters because ports matter. Ports are not just buildings by water. Ports are arteries. They move food, fuel, equipment, exports. They move economic life of nations. And this is one of the major patterns in modern war. You do not always have to conquer a country to weaken it. You can pressure its infrastructure. You can damage its ports, interrupt its power, disrupt its supply lines, exhaust its defenses, force it to spend resources intercepting constant attacks. This is the new shape of war. Not one giant battle and then it's over. It is pressure every night. Drones, missiles, cyber pressure, economic pressure, sanctions, shipping disruption, information warfare. And men, this is why the average person is overwhelmed by the news. Because there is no clean beginning, middle, and end anymore. It is not like old history books where one army lines up against another army and then the war is decided in one afternoon. Modern conflict becomes atmospheric. It becomes the air people breathe. Constant alert, constant pressure, constant uncertainty, constant cost, and that matters because a world stuck in permanent pressure becomes easier to reshape. People under pressure will accept things they would not normally reject. They will accept more surveillance if they are scared. They will accept higher prices if they feel there is no alternative. They will accept emergency powers if they feel chaos is everywhere. They will accept digital systems if they are told it will bring order. This is why we watch, not because we worship fear, because we understand that chaos often becomes the doorway for control. And Odessa is one signal in a larger war pattern. Ports are pressure points. Energy is a pressure point. Supply chains are pressure points. And the people who control pressure points control outcomes. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because while the battlefield keeps burning, the language of diplomacy is starting to shift. And sometimes the biggest headline is not what a leader does. Sometimes it is what a leader finally admits out loud. Reuters reports that German Chancellor Friedrich Merz suggested Ukraine may have to accept territorial loss as part of a future peace deal with Russia, connecting that possibility to Ukraine's path toward European Union membership. That is a major signal, because for a long time the public language around Ukraine has been very firm. No concessions, no compromise, no accepted of lost territory, no rewarding aggression. But now we are seeing a different kind of language appear. Not necessarily policy yet, but language, and language matters. Before governments change direction, they often test language. They float ideas, they soften the public, they introduce uncomfortable realities, they see who reacts, they see what the media does, what allies say, what public can tolerate. So when a major European leader starts suggesting Ukraine may have to accept territorial loss for a future peace path, that is not just a throwaway comment. That is a signal that a conversation is shifting. Now, does that mean a deal is tomorrow? No. Does it mean everyone agrees? No. Does it mean Ukraine will accept it? Not automatically. But it does mean the Western conversation is changing. And here's the hard truth. Wars are often sold to the public in moral language, but they are ended in political language. At the beginning, everyone talks about justice. At the end, everyone talks about borders, leverage, resources, guarantees, treaties, money, rebuilding, and power. That is not me saying what should happen. That is me saying how the world works. The war may be entering a phase where leaders start preparing people for an outcome nobody wanted to say out loud. That is the uncomfortable part, and it connects directly to the bigger pattern. Pressure creates negotiation. Negotiation creates compromise. Compromise creates public anger. Public anger creates more instability. This is why we cannot watch one headline in isolation. The drone attacks matter. The port infrastructure matters. The EU path matters. The German comments matter. The sanctions matter. The loans matter. It's all part of the same machine grinding forward. Now shift your eyes east, because while Europe is trying to figure out how to end or freeze one war, Asia is preparing for the possibility of another kind of war entirely. AP reports that Japan's Prime Minister launched a 15-member expert panel to review Japan's defense and security policies because of threats from China, North Korea, Russia, drone warfare, and prolonged conflict. Now, that might not sound as dramatic as a shooting, an oil crisis, or a drone attack, but this is one of the most important quiet headlines because Japan does not move casually on defense. Japan's post World War II identity has been deeply tied to restraint, pacifism, and defense posture. So when Japan starts reviewing defense policy in a serious way, that tells you the security environment in Asia is changing. China, Taiwan, North Korea, Russia, drones, missiles, cyber warfare, long term conflict. That is the map they are looking at. And the phrase that matters here is prolonged conflict, because governments are not just preparing for one dramatic event, they are preparing for long pressure. That means months, years, gray zones, cyber attacks, drone threats, supply chain interruptions, maritime pressure, regional instability. And here's the bigger picture: Europe is militarizing under pressure. The Middle East is tightening under pressure. Asia is preparing under pressure. America is politically unstable under pressure. So the question becomes, how much pressure can a system absorb before something breaks? And men, again, this is not fear. This is awareness. You do not need to be terrified to be serious. You do not need to be paranoid to be prepared. You do not need to run around screaming to understand that the world is changing. A grown man can look at the world clearly and still walk in peace. That is the standard. Clear eyes, steady hands, rooted spirit. And now we get to the strange split, because while the physical world is full of pressure, war, oil, ports, defense, the digital world is booming. That contrast is not random. It is one of the bigger stories of our time. Reuters reported that AI and semiconductor demand remains strong, with chip-related optimism continuing even while oil and geopolitical tensions weigh on the broader picture. Reuters also reported that the Iran conflict has disrupted printed circuit board supply chains, raising costs for tech firms. So think about that. On one side, oil routes are under pressure, ports are under pressure, wars are expanding, defense policies are shifting, political violence is shaking public confidence. But on the other side, AI demands keep rising, semiconductor demands keep rising, cloud infrastructure keeps growing, digital systems keep expanding. That is the split. The real world gets tighter, the digital world gets stronger. Now be careful here. We are not saying every AI company is evil. We are not saying technology itself is the enemy. Technology is a tool. But tools become dangerous when they are placed inside the systems of control without wisdom, morality, or accountability. And this is where you need to lean in. Because the future being built right now is not just physical, it is digital. Digital identity, AI moderation, automated systems, financial tracking, algorithmic influence, data collection, cloud infrastructure, smart cities, predictive policing, digital payment rails, and in times of chaos, those systems are always marked as solutions. They will say, we need more security, better tracking, faster identification, automated threat detection, real-time monitoring, digital compliance, and some of that may sound reasonable. But the question is, who controls it? Who audits it? Who can shut you out? Who defines misinformation? Who defines extremism? Who decides what behavior is suspicious? Who owns the data? Who profits from the fear? That is where the watchman pays attention, because the old world is being squeezed and the new system is being built. Not all at once, not with one headline, but headline by headline, crisis by crisis, update by update, Convenience by convenience. And that is why this segment matters. Because the strongest system often rise during the weakest moments. And if men are not paying attention, they wake up one day inside a world they never consciously chose. So let's connect the dots. In America, political tension is boiling over. In the Middle East, energy routes are under pressure. In Europe, war keeps hitting infrastructure. In Ukraine, diplomacy, the language is shifting toward hard compromise. In Asia, Japan is reviewing defense for a more dangerous era. And in markets, AI and semiconductor systems keep accelerating through the smoke. That is the episode. That is the pattern. Not random chaos, but managed pressure. Pressure on politics, energy, infrastructure, borders, defense, information, pressure on the average man. And when pressure rises, character gets revealed. Weak men panic, lazy men ignore it, angry men react, but disciplined men prepare. Disciplined men pray. Disciplined men watch. Disciplined men build. Disciplined men protect their homes. Disciplined men stop wasting time. Disciplined men stop pretending tomorrow is guaranteed. Because men, the world does not need more noise. The world needs more watchmen. And I want to bring this back to scripture for a second. Because being a watchman is not about doom. It is about duty. Ezekiel was told to watch and warn. Not because he controlled the outcome, but because he was responsible for sounding the alarm. That is the position. We do not control governments, wars, oil markets, global finance. We do not control what leaders do behind closed doors. But we do control whether we are awake. We control whether our homes are in order. We control whether our children see us steady or scattered. We spend our time scrolling or strengthening. We control whether we live in fear or faith. And that is the line tonight. Do not let pressure make you panic. Let it make you prepare. Do not let the headlines steal your peace. Let them sharpen your discernment. Do not let the world pull you into chaos, but stand firm. Because a man rooted in God, disciplined in his habits, and awake to the times is not easily moved. That is what this channel is about. Truth-seeking, discernment, preparedness, and brotherhood. Light in dark times. So drop your thoughts below. What stood out to you the most? What is the political pressure here at home? Was it the Strait of Hormuz and the energy choke point? Was it the Ukraine port attacks? Was it Germany changing the language around peace? Was it Japan preparing for a different kind of world? Or was it the AI system rising while the physical world strains? Let me know. And if you are new here, this is Truth-Seeking Foogler. We watch the signs, we seek the truth, and we walk in the light. Stay sharp, stay grounded, stay prepared, and remember, while the world sleeps, the watchmen were awake.